Hi, I'm back for the second half of Chapter 7, Pizza Bagels and Barricades. After a turbulent flight and a rough landing at John F. Kennedy International Airport, Connor and his friends hopped into a taxi van for another bumpy ride into Manhattan. As if the driver were being paid per pothole, the taxi rattled and shook as it traveled down the highway toward Midtown. Goldilocks had a difficult time holding on to Hero, so she put him in the baby Bjorn Red had purchased. The newborn wasn't bothered by the rocky ride at all. After 9 months in Goldilocks' womb, Hero was used to such commotion and found it quite comforting. The rougher things became, the easier it was for him to sleep. Connor sat in the front passenger seat and changed the driver's radio to a local news to hear if there had been any development since the night before. According to the news, a massive gas leak was responsible for all the barricades and the evacuations in the area surrounding the New York Public Library. However, to Connor's surprise, nothing was mentioned about the lively lion statues they had seen on television. I don't understand, he said. There was footage of the statues swiping at police officers. We can't be the only ones who saw it. They're probably covering it up to prevent hysteria, Bree said. It's just like the 1947 UFO crash in Roswell, New Mexico. Newspapers reported that the wreckage of a flying saucer had been discovered, and then the following day, the Army ordered the press to retract the story and say it was just another weather balloon. Connor gulped at the thought of Alex being turned into another weather balloon. He was so worried about his sister he barely noticed the Queens neighborhood zipping past his window or the Manhattan skyline in the distance ahead. The taxi entered the Queens Midtown Tunnel which stretched underneath the East River and re-emerged in the middle of Manhattan. Connor and his friends stared at the city in awe as their taxi zigzagged between the crowded sidewalks and towering skyscrapers. The hustling metropolis was such a spectacular sight it almost took Connor's mind off Alex. The whole city feels like it's buzzing, Goldilocks noted. They must sell a lot of caffeine here. The building stands higher than beanstalks, Jack said. Connor, why didn't you tell us New York City was so tall? Actually, I was just as amazed as you are, Connor said. I've written about cities like this, but I've never been able to describe the feeling it gives you at first sight. Now I know it's because it can't be described in words. Red grunted, forever unimpressed by the other world. Sure, it's big, but why does everything need to be so boxy, she asked. Is it too much to ask for a tower or a dome or a sensible spiral? I feel like a mouse in a shoebox closet. They drove through a wide intersection and the glistening roof of the Chrysler building came into view. Red squealed and pressed her hands and forehead against the window. Now that's more like it, she said. The taxi paused briefly on the corner of 5th Avenue and 34th Street, waiting for the procession of police vehicles to pass by. Connor could have sworn he recognized a few people in the window of the restaurant called Cheesy Street, but he figured it was just his mind playing tricks on him. As he moved to take a second look, he dropped his wallet on the floorboard. By the time he sat back up, the taxi was already moving again. Once the police were gone, the driver turned south on 5th Avenue and pulled over between 33rd and 34th Street. I know you wanted to get as close to the library as possible, but you may want to get out of here, he suggested. Traffic is backed up in this area because of a gas leak. It'll be faster if you just walk the rest of the way. That works, Connor said. How much do I owe you? That'll be $60 total, the driver said. We have to pay for this ride? Red asked in disbelief. For goodness sake, a runaway carriage would have been much more comfortable. We were 2 bumps away from having our innards scrambled. Don't complain to me, lady, the driver said. I took the smooth streets. Connor retrieved some cash from his wallet and paid the driver. He and his friends got out of the taxi and joined the bustling pedestrians on the 5th Avenue sidewalk. Connor looked up and down the street, but the crowds made it difficult for him to figure out where they were. Which way to the public library? He asked, thinking out loud. I looked it up on my phone, but I don't want my parents to track me. It's a long story, Bree said. Looks like we'll have to resort to ancient methods and ask for directions. Connor and Bree tried to flag someone down, but all the tourists and locals breezed right past them. There were so many people Red couldn't see where she was walking and almost stepped on a homeless man sitting on the ground. Hey, Your Majesty, he said. Watch where you're going. The man was scruffy and wore a janitor's uniform under a dirty brown coat. Red smiled at him and patted him on the head like he was a dog. Oh, bless you, she said. Thank you for recognizing me. But there's no need for formal titles while I'm in this world. Red, he's being sarcastic, Bree said. Most people in the other world don't walk around in ball gowns and tiaras. Since the homeless man was the only person on the street who wasn't in a hurry to get somewhere else, Connor figured he was their best shot at getting directions to the library. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "Could you tell us how to get to the New York Public Library from here?" "Sure I could," the homeless man said. "Got a dollar?" Connor shrugged and gave him $1. The homeless man held it toward the sun to make sure it was a legitimate bill. "Walk north on this block for 6 blocks and make a left. You can't miss it," he said. "Although I doubt they're letting anyone get close after what happened last night." "Are you talking about the gas leak?" Bree asked. "A gas leak? Is that what they say happened?" The homeless man snorted and shook his head in disbelief. "Typical. They're always trying to control people by keeping them in the dark. Well, they can't control me. I was at the library last night, and I saw what really happened with my own eyes." Connor and his friends formed a half circle around the homeless man, which seemed to make him a little nervous. "Mind telling us what you saw?" Connor asked. "We'd love to know what's really going on." "I'd love to tell you, but the story will cost you $10, the man said. $10, Connor said, "but you only charged me $1 for directions." "Listen, kid, I didn't wind up on the streets by being a bad businessman. If I've got something you want, it's going to cost you." Connor rolled his eyes and gave the homeless man $10. Once the man had inspected the money, he tucked it away and began his story. "It was around midnight, and I was sleeping down by the library," he said. "They've got this bench near a fountain. It's my favorite place to take a snooze in the city. Anywho, I was dreaming about playing in the World Series when I was rudely awakened by the sound of police sirens. I was worried the library security guard had called the fuzz on me, so I hid behind some bushes. The next thing I know, some broad comes floating out of the library like a ghost. She raised her hands into the sky and bam! Lightning struck both the lion statues. Naturally, once I saw that, I bolted like a rat in the cat house. To be honest, it's not even the first time I've seen magic in this city, but hey, who's gonna believe a bum like me?" Connor's heart was beating so hard he could feel it in multiple parts of his body. He leaned down and looked in the homeless man directly in his eyes. "The girl who floated out of the library, what did she look like?" he said. "She was really pale," the man said. "She had bright blue eyes and long reddish blonde hair and wore a white dress. Come to think of it, she looked a lot like you, kid." "Alex," Connor gasped. "We were right. She's here. She's at the library." Without any warning, he dashed up Fifth Avenue as fast as he could, and his friends followed. They weaved through the crowds on the sidewalk until they came to a dead stop at a barricade on 38th Street. The blockade was an overwhelming sight. A dozen police cars were parked in a row across the street to prevent pedestrians and traffic from going any farther. Beyond the cars, dozens and dozens of police officers were scattered throughout the vacated area. Connor tried sneaking past the barricade, but an officer blocked him. "Whoa, whoa, whoa," the officer said. "Where's the fire?" "Please, you have to let me through," Connor said. "It's an emergency." "Sorry, no one's allowed past this point," the officer said. "They're clearing up a nasty gas leak up at the library. It isn't safe." "Yes, I know that's what they're telling people, but my sister's the one in the library. I need to get to her before someone harms her." "Young man, the library has been evacuated," the officer said. "I promise, wherever your sister was, she's been moved to a safe location." "No, you don't understand," Connor yelled. "She's the one causing all of this. You need to let me through so I can help her." As if Connor were on autopilot, he pushed the officer out of his way, squeezed between the rows of police vehicles, and made a run for the library before he even realized what he was doing. Unfortunately, he was only half a block past the barricade when he was tackled to the pavement by another police officer. Connor fought the officer off with all his might, determined to reach the library. It took 2 more officers to keep him pinned to the ground. They handcuffed him and threw him in the back seat of the nearest vehicle. "You've got to let me go," Connor pleaded. "The whole world may be in danger if you don't let me find my sister." "You're out of your mind, kid," the officer said and slammed the car door. "Stay in there and chill out." It happened so fast none of Connor's friends knew what to do. They were vastly outnumbered by the police officers standing nearby. If they tried to intervene now, they'd all get arrested. Connor looked through the window at his friends standing helplessly on the sidewalk and mouthed sorry. Now that he'd been detained in the backseat of a police car, the odds of finding Alex had plummeted. One impulsive move to save his sister might have cost them everything. Suddenly, the ground began to vibrate. Everyone in the area worried it was an earthquake until the vibration was accompanied by the sound of roaring engines. Connor, his friends, and all the police officers looked down at 38th Street and discovered a huge, long row of beige Hummers speeding toward them. The police allowed the Hummers through the barricade, and they parked side by side in an impressive straight line. Swarms of United States Marines emerged from the vehicles in camouflage uniforms with their weapons ready. An older man with gray hair and broad shoulders stepped out of the first Hummer, and all the Marines lined up behind him. Unlike the soldiers, the older man wore a green dress uniform decorated with medals. He wore dark sunglasses and was smoking a cigar. He scanned the area like he had just stepped into a war zone and then directed his stern gaze at the police officers. "Which one of you is Commissioner Healy?" he said. An older African-American man in a navy blue suit stepped out from a group of police officers. "General Wilson, I presume," the commissioner said. "Thank you for coming, sir." The commissioner and the general shook hands just a few feet from the police vehicle that Connor sat inside. Thanks to a slightly rolled-down window, he could hear every word the men were saying. He ducked down in the back seat so they wouldn't see him eavesdropping. "Commissioner, will you please tell me what the heck is going on in your city?" the general said. "What could possibly warrant the president's decision to put boots on the ground?" "I wish we had more answers for you, General, but we're still trying to figure it out," Commissioner Healy said. "Long story short, the library is under attack. 2 of my officers responded to a distress call early this morning and discovered a young girl with strange abilities. She caused lightning to appear and somehow made the lion statues on the front library steps come to life. The lions are currently guarding the library and attack anyone who tries to enter it. Once we were able to obtain photographic proof, we contacted the White House." Interestingly, the general didn't question the commissioner's report, as Connor had expected. "Where is the girl now?" the general asked. "As far as we know, she's still inside the library," the commissioner said. "What she's doing is anyone's guess." General Wilson took a long drag on his cigar and slowly exhaled as he absorbed this information. After a moment, he turned on his heel and addressed the Marines behind him. "All right, soldiers, it's time to get to work," the general ordered. "I want the barricade around the library extended 8 blocks in each direction. Contact the Pentagon and have them establish a no-fly zone above the city of Manhattan. I don't want anything leaking to the press. I want snipers stationed on every roof surrounding the library. Once we take our position at the base of the steps, we'll open fire on the statues and try to take them out. Then we'll find the girl inside." The commissioner was appalled by what he heard. "General, you can't shoot the lion statues. They're national landmarks." General Wilson removed his sunglasses and looked the commissioner in the eye. "Thanks for your input, Commissioner, but your little backyard circus is now a matter of national security," he said. "I'll decide what measures I should or should not take to ensure that your city stays in one piece. If you have a problem with that, I'll have you placed on the other side of the barricades faster than you can say, 'I love New York.'" The commissioner did not argue any further. The general nodded to his Marines and they spread out like cockroaches to fulfill his orders. The general returned to his Hummer and was driven up Fifth Avenue to get a closer look at the library. As the commissioner and his police officers watched the Hummers drive off, Jack snuck past the blockade and quietly opened the back door of the police car Connor was sitting in. "Come on," Jack whispered. "Quick, while they're all looking away." Once Connor had regrouped with his friends, they raced down Fifth Avenue and ducked into the first alley they could find. With one slice of his axe, Jack freed Connor from the handcuffs binding him. Connor walked around the alley in a huff and angrily kicked the side of the dumpster. "This is getting more difficult by the second," he moaned. "At least we know where your sister is," Goldilocks reminded him. "That alone puts us in a better place than we used to be." "We still have to get to her, though," Connor said. "These army guys won't care if Alex is being controlled by a witch or not. They'll kill her the moment they think she's a threat." "We've got to get to her before they do, and I don't have the slightest idea how to do that. And I'm sorry, Jack, but no amount of imagination or positive thinking is going to help us get past the NYPD, the United States Marines, and 2 possessed lion statues." Bree, Jack, Goldilocks, and Red didn't even try to persuade him otherwise. They paced around in silence as they tried to brainstorm a possible plan. Their train of thought was interrupted by the sound of someone clearing their throat. Someone who wasn't in their group. They looked up and saw the homeless man from earlier was standing a few feet away. "Forgive the intrusion," he said. "I saw your little scuffle with the fuzz back there. I know they didn't want to listen to you, but I'd like to help you if you'll let me." "Sorry, dude, I'm out of cash," Connor said. "This time I'm offering my services free of charge," the homeless man said. "I know I may not look like much, but I know how to get to your sister." "No offense, but I sincerely doubt that," Connor said. "We need to get inside the public library, and every entrance is being guarded by the U.S. Marines and 2 man-eating statues." A sly smile spread across the homeless man's face. "You're wrong," he said. "They aren't guarding every entrance." And I'll continue next time with Chapter 8, The Calvin Coolidge Express. I'll see you guys then.